6:46 a.m., the gray dawn hung low over the Donetsk-Luhansk front. The silence cracked as Russia unleashed its full-scale assault. 320 drones worth $160 million surged into the sky, followed by 70 heavy tanks worth $420 million rumbling across the wet ground. Moscow's objective was simple: pierce Ukraine's defenses in a single blow. The earth trembled. Engines roared through the wind, signaling that the decisive battle had begun. At 6:52 a.m., the first warning came through the static. A cluster of irregular spikes on the radar screens deep inside Ukraine's command bunker. Russian formations were on the move. Within seconds, General Alexander Syrsky issued the order that broke the dawn's fragile calm. Open fire from concealed positions near Bakhmut. The two S-3 Akatsiya self-propelled howitzers thundered to life, each shell worth $25,000, arcing across the sky in synchronized fury. A moment later, the BM-21 Grad rocket batteries, each launcher valued at $1.5 million, unleashed a storm of fire over the advancing Russian column. 12 salvos screamed through the air. The first explosions erupted along the Russian mine-clearing line, 5 armored vehicles engulfed in flame, their crews scattering as the blast waves rolled across the steppe. For a brief moment, the massive invasion force hesitated. Then came the counterstrike. Russian operators released a swarm of Lancet attack drones, each costing $50,000, streaking low through the smoke. 3 Ukrainian artillery sites vanished in blossoms of fire and dirt, their radar signatures fading into silence. Inside the bunker, alarms wailed again. Sensor stations picked up dozens of new heat signatures. A fresh wave of suicidal UAVs diving fast, closing in on forward positions. The sky outside turned into a kaleidoscope of contrails and explosions. The war that had been building in data and silence was now bursting into reality. And this was only the beginning. By 7:06 a.m., the battlefield near Bakhmut had turned into a maze of traps and silent tension. Beneath the rolling fields, Ukrainian engineers had buried 60 anti-tank mines, each worth $40,000, forming a lethal ring across the approach routes. They called the plan Operation Iron Field, a trap meant to snap shut the moment Russia's spearhead advanced. A recon team operating just beyond the tree line guided the plan's execution. Using a T-2 reconnaissance drone valued at $50,000, they tracked the dark silhouettes of T-90M tanks, each costing around $4 million, crawling forward in perfect formation. The drone's camera feed flickered with heat signatures, dozens of heavy engines pushing toward the hidden line of mines. When the coordinates were locked, the team transmitted a single coded message: "Field ready. Awaiting trigger." Then fate intervened. One of the Russian UR-77 mine-clearing vehicles, a machine worth nearly $3 million, rolled directly over the central detonator. The crushing weight set off a catastrophic chain reaction. The ground convulsed, 14 Russian vehicles vanished in pillars of dirt and flame. The shockwave tore through the valley, shattering windows miles away. But triumph turned to dread. The explosion had come too early. The rest of the Russian column halted, wary but alive. Inside the Ukrainian command post, radio contact flickered out for 40 long seconds, the most expensive silence of the war. In that frozen interval, General Syrsky faced a single choice: withdraw into defense or strike again before the dust even settled. Comment 1 if you think this ends on the battlefield, 2 if it ends at the table, 3 if it never ends at all. General Syrsky did not retreat. Standing amid the haze of smoke and static, he issued a single command that flipped the momentum of the war. Within minutes, 200 net-casting drones, each valued at $35,000, lifted into the air like metallic hornets. From concealed trenches, rows of 6-barrel Gatling guns worth $280,000 apiece spun to life, their barrels glowing under the strain. The battlefield erupted into a spectacle of motion, a storm of machines fighting machines. Above the steppe, hundreds of drones swarmed and clashed like birds of prey. Ukrainian interceptors cast their reinforced nets with precision, tangling propellers and dragging enemy UAVs into the ground. In just 10 minutes, more than 70 Russian drones spiraled out of control, crashing in bright bursts of fire. Yet Moscow struck back without hesitation. From 20 miles away, Russian artillery launched a salvo of Smerch rockets, each missile worth $800,000, arcing over the horizon. The explosions ripped through Ukraine's forward lines, 5 soldiers wounded, 3 supply trucks engulfed in flames. The reply came instantly. Sersky unleashed 250 kamikaze drones, each costing $60,000, and 100 precision bomb-dropping UAVs worth $45,000 each. The sky turned white with contrails and sparks. One after another, Russian tanks detonated 27 in total, their turrets hurled skyward as secondary fires consumed the fields. For a moment, the entire front glowed in blinding orange light, the roar of engines and explosions merging into a single terrible symphony of steel and fire. "Let them walk in, then shut the steel door," Sersky ordered, voice flat as the horizon. From the dark ribs of forest north and south, armored companies waited T-64 seconds priced at $2.5 million and T-72 seconds at $3.2 million hulls hunched like predators. UJ-22 reconnaissance drones, each $85,000, skimmed low, feeding pinpoint coordinates to forward observers and counter-battery crews. As the Russian spearhead crossed into Killbox Delta, designators locked and fuse timers synchronized. Then, in one rehearsed pulse, layered fires fell. Tube artillery, rocket volleys, and concealed anti-tank teams converged. The front's tempo snapped from motion to trap, precise and merciless. The air turned molten in the heart of Donetsk's front. Within 7 minutes, 19 Russian tanks exploded in towering plumes of flame as more than 500 shells crossed paths overhead. BTR-4 armored carriers, each worth $1 million, surged forward, deploying assault teams armed with RPG-7 launchers priced at only $2,000. The close-quarter fight was vicious fire against steel. Russia answered with RBK-500 cluster bombs, each $120,000, but their counterattack faltered. Out of 70 tanks, only 25 survived, scarred and smoking beneath the rising haze. By noon, the chase was over. Recon drones guided motorized strike teams that swept through the shattered fields, cornering retreating Russian troops. More than 300 soldiers were captured, hundreds fled in disarray. In just 5 hours, Russia lost 80% of its armor and 70% of its manpower, while Ukraine suffered fewer than 30 casualties. Donetsk had become a $1 billion graveyard of steel and smoke. When the battle smoke cleared, the real war began, the one for survival. Villages around Donetsk lay silent, power lines down, wells dry, over 2,000 civilians displaced. Aid convoys rolled in under Red Cross banners, carrying $1.8 million worth of tents, water, and medicine. Across emergency radios, a single broadcast echoed through the static, "No victory is worth forgetting humanity." Ukraine had reclaimed the front, but the lesson lingered. In the 21st century, strategy means nothing without compassion.